Just a quick video showing the my Maytag Rip Special with the covers taken off. So this is based on the Morgan Rip Special. I call it the Maytag Rip Special, and kind of an homage to the early karters who took motors off of Maytag washing machines to make the original go-karts that were ever made. Up front here I have the fake V-twin engine. It's actually pipe out of a dryer. This bit here is a salad bowl, so it gives it that kind of shiny appearance. The heads are off of two different push lawnmowers, and then the rest of it's just bits of car parts that I had laying around that don't weigh very much, but give it the appearance. I just kept adding stuff till it looked busy enough to be what I would expect to see under a hood, and I think it did a good job. Coming back here with the cover removed, you can see I've got my hydraulic brakes right there. Down here I've got the switch for the brake light. That's just a switch stopper from a old garage door opener. Over here I've got the gas pedal. Rather than having the cable come out the back of it, I have this little linkage set up so that you can, I'm trying to get where you can see it, so that it pulls that cable right there. And that just gave a little mechanical advantage for the amount of movement my foot does compared to the amount of pull on the cable that I needed. And so that's the basic mechanical aspect of it. I have set it up with quite a bit of wiring. I have it with a 12-volt motorcycle battery in it, but currently I don't have a way to charge it other than just hooking it up to the battery charger periodically. But I've installed a horn, and I also have installed a rear light that has a brake light and a running light, and I have a switch on the dashboard to turn the lights on and off, and there's a pigtail going up to the front to turn the light in the front on, even though I have not put it in yet. And I may make it just so that it's something I can pull out and snap on as needed, since they're not attractive. You can see the plug for it right there. I thought this was kind of fun. I just added this today. It's an old horn off of an old car. It just has a great geometry to it, but you can see in the back it's not really there. The heavy part of it, the mechanical part, is gone, and I just have a little go-kart horn that doesn't weigh much there. So get all the coolness of the looks without the weight. Talking about the sides of it, so here you can see I've got my brake lever that's made from an old vintage hammer. I cut the hammer off, welded it to a gear shifter off of a motorcycle that has a shaft that goes inside, and then inside there's a, come around and I'll show you, there's a sewing machine piece down there that I drilled out to have a hole so it connects to the brake cable, and it lets me pull that cable. Another thing that is kind of cool about this car is I've built it with tilt steering. You can see that steering wheel move up and down. It was just an opportunity because of the way that the shaft was has the universal joints. And so when the top is on, the top has a lock so that when I slide it up to a certain place, I can lock it. It just kind of floats when the top bonnet is not on. Coming around to the seat, leather from an old leather couch that I had years ago. At the time we were throwing the couch away, I thought the leather was just too cool, so I cut it all off, and I've had it in a back of my closet for a long time, and now it's here, and it really, yeah, it looks beautiful. And down here I've got 4 inches of springs that I took out of an old box spring mattress. We got a Select Comfort mattress for our camper trailer, and the old spiral spring mattress was left as scrap, so that's a great use of that. I'll mention here too, even this little cross member here, that piece is out of a dryer. It's one of the support brackets inside of a dryer. So keeps the price down when you can make it out using parts that don't cost money. Let's show you how the seats put together. You can see here This piece here is just a piece of kind of half-rounded aluminum, very thin aluminum. And so that's bent around, and then this piece that makes the seat is also a big sheet. And I didn't have a fancy way to build that. I just kind of, when I still had it just with the ladders as the frame, I just took a big square of that aluminum metal. I'll call it tin, just because we all know what that kind of mentally what that looks like, but it's aluminum. But I just bent it in there until I got the shape that I wanted, and then I took that piece in the back and just riveted it to it to hold it in shape, and then took the grinder and just sculpted the back of that seat into the shape that I thought that I wanted. And then once I had it all bolted and riveted together, I could take the clamps off and have it stay in position. And I can even unbolt that piece out of it and take it out, and it still maintains its chair shape now. I'm coming back here. You can see my ladder frame that I use in the go-kart. This is actually the end of the ladder. You can see some of these brackets here. It's one of the ladders, one of the other ladders, just the bottom side of those ladders. And then this piece coming around here, I took that off an old scrapped go-kart, but it has the pin on this side, and then it has the pin on this side goes all the way through. You can see that there. That's that shaft in the middle here that rides in between those two actually carries the front half of the engine too, so the engine can pivot right off of that pivot point. Technically that'd make it so you could have suspension, but you know, cycle karts really don't do suspension on the rear end. But I did do this, which I really like, is when I bolted it up, I put some rubber motor mounts there, just like 10 bucks off Amazon, but that does soften up a blow just enough when you hit a bump that it just kind of softens the hit, which I think will help with you know, fatigue over time on the frame, just to have that little bit of a break. And by using the scrapped go-kart, I got the axle, the brake mechanism, it came with the sprocket, all that rear running gear, which was really helpful. It took me a while to figure out how to fit a gas tank under there, but then I figured out how to put this one here. That's actually a little tank off of one of the Chinese motorized bicycle kits that people buy. Bought one a few years ago from my boy, and he loved driving it for a while, but then he grew up and it sat in the backyard and just rotting for a while, so it got new life there. And then you can see that plumbing piece, which gives me a nice extension on my brake lever. Coming back here, there's the battery. I have a little fuse on it so we don't overdo it on anything. It's got a pigtail there that hooks onto the rear bonnet for the tail light and the brake light. That's pretty much it for the running gear of the cart. Just take a brief look at the underside of the bonnets. So this is the rear cover. You would think of it as like the trunk portion, but it doesn't have a trunk, and you can see it's just made of a metal bracketing system that then has canvas stretched over it. And I didn't build this car with any plans. I didn't have any drawn picture. I just kind of built as I went along, and I would just look at the picture of the Morgan Rip Special, which is the inspiration car, and just say, yeah, what looks kind of similar? And so I just started kind of clamping these pieces together, which are out of a cheap bed frame. All these tubings. I'll just get an end shot there. You can kind of see what they are, but out of a bed frame. And I just started clamping them together in different geometries until I got something that came out to that point, and then I started bolting them together. And I just kept adding little bracketing supports to it until it was stiff enough to take the clamps away, and then I stretched that canvas over it. One trick that I found that I think you might be interested in is, you can see here where I riveted to hold that canvas on. You'll notice that's an erector set piece there. The holes that they drill in the erector set piece is almost perfect for rivets, so you can use that as a backer when you're trying to pull down on something. Really handy, and it works really well. So that's the rear cover. Let me come over and look at the front cover. It's actually very similar. rather than using bed frames, I had these T aluminum extruded material. It was just something I had that came out of a scrap bin at a company I used to work for, and I just set those on top of this is plywood, and I have that on both sides, and I got those 2 plywoods like I wanted them, and then just screwed those T's on so that the pointy end was sticking up, and then of course I stretched that canvas over it nice and tight, and that created that covered surface. On this one I did a little different. This is not the Erector set. This is actually from I'm sure you've seen them, where you can put in shelving that has adjustable height shelving. This is that adjustable height shelving, and so I put that in on each side. And the cool thing about that is, if I come back over to the car, I've put in these little rubber bumpers. I got them on both sides. When I put that bonnet on, it nests down inside of those. So they'll go right inside of this, and they nest down in there, and it sits really snug. And then it's held down on the cockpit side, these little brackets, and then on the front it just has a couple, I think 3 fasteners that go in this end that hold it to the firewall on the front. Like I said, I've almost built the entire car using used materials, both the front bonnet and the rear cover. That canvas came off of military duffel bags. I ran out of duffel bag, and so I went down to the craft store where they sell sewing equipment and was able to find some texturally similar canvas, and that's what I put on the sides along the long length of the car. But even then, you can see I had to seam it in a couple places to get enough room, and over here I had to make a separate piece, partly so I could take that wheel on and off if I needed to for maintenance purpose, but partly because I was using used aluminum that I'd pulled out of a scrap bin, and it just had certain spots that were cut out. So if you look from the back end, so I had to cover up that whole area. So just created a way. But the original car looks old. It looks like it's been worked on over and over and over. So I felt like leaving those roughnesses was good. Even like down here, you can see where I riveted some things together, and I didn't worry about covering that up because it just gives it that feel of being old and maybe have been worked on a few times and maybe have even been bent up a little bit. So it just lends to the factor. I'll point out 1 or 2 more things. This is just a piece of plumbing pipe, plastic plumbing pipe, but I have some sheets of stainless steel that companies use for, they print on them to make part marks for parts, and then they cut them out and you have a metal label for your part. But they bought the wrong ones, and they were going to throw them away, and I said, let me take those. And I took home a ream of this stainless steel, basically printer paper, but it's stainless steel with a backing tape on it, and you can buy that on Amazon if you just search for metallic sheets for printing. You can find that, and they just like 8.5 by 11. It looks like printer paper, but except for it's metal. And you can get them in different metals too. You can get them in copper, but it makes a great way to metallize any sort of plastic, and you have no weight associated with it. And then I've got that, what's looking like my exhaust pipe. That came out of a factory where it used to be the vacuum system for picking up fumes from soldering. And I had a couple of those, and I like the way they look. They're real compelling. Anyway, that's a basic look at the Maytag Rip Special cycle cart, based on the Morgan Rip Special British race car, and I will close there.